job. Okay. I'm gonna talk to Bay to the nay, and then we'll go play. Okay? Sound good or no good? My keys are here. Okay. Here's your change of shirts.
I have change of shirt. I have change of shirt.
Okay. Okay, read out loud. Okay.
Before the campaign began, Nikolai Rostov had received a letter from his parents with a few words about Natasha's illness and the breaking of her engagement, which they described as a rebuff from her, and another plea for him to retire from the army and come home. On receiving his letter, Nikolai made no attempt to apply or leave retirement. He wrote back to say how very sorry he was that Natasha's effort to do was ill and had broken off her engagement, and he would make every effort to do what they wanted. To Sonia, he wrote separately, "My current beloved companion of my soul," he wrote, "nothing but honors could keep me from going back to the country. But now, at the outset of a companion, I will feel a sense of dishonor, not only towards my comrades, but also in my own eyes, were I to put but Natasha's the outside of the companion, I would feel a sense of dishonor, not only towards my comrades, but also in my own eyes, were I to put my own happiness ahead of my duty and my love for our fatherland. But this is our last separation. Believe me, once this war is over, I am still alive and so loved by you. I should cast everything aside and fly to you, to press you forever." And indeed, it was only the outbreak of war and had detained that Rostov and kept him from going back home, as he had promised to marry Sonia. The autumn and winter at Otradno was hunting. The Christmas celebrations in Sonia's love had opened up, in the prospect of a nice, quiet life as a country gentleman who had pleasant pleasures as he had never had known before, which now back a nice wife, children, a decent pack of hounds, a dozen quick borzoi, managing the estates, visiting the neighbors, get myself electrocuted to something he must. But now there was a war on, and he had to stay with his regiment, since he had to. Nikolai Rostov, beginning that what he was managed to make the most regimental life and ensure that this life was a pleasant one. Nikolai has been given a warm welcome by his comrades on this return from leave, and had then been sent off to Ukraine on a procurement mission, from where he came back in some splendid horses, which was gratifying for him and the source of much praise from the top brace, which he had been away. His promotion to the captain had come through in when the regiment was placed on war footing with an increased complement. He was given his old squadron to command, with the new companion under way. The regiment was sent to Poland on double pay, with new officers, new men, new fresh horses. Best of all, the happy mood of excitement that comes at the beginning of a war permitted everything, and Rostov, conscious of his privileged positions in regiment, gave himself up body and soul to the business and pleasure of soldiering. Through he knew that sooner or later he would have to give it all up for a variety of complex reasons, administrative, political, and tactical. The army was in retreat, for every retreating step was taken against a complex interplay of self-interest, administrative, political, and tactical. The army was in retreat. Every retreat step was taken against a complex interplay of self-interest and argumentation and high passion at headquarters. But for the hussars of the Pavlograd regiment, the whole business, retreating in high summer and with everything in low good supply, was the simplest and most agreeable of tasks. How spirits, worry, and intrigue might have been at headquarters, but the army rank of file never gave a thought to where they were going to look. Why they were going, or why, if there were any misgivings about retreating, they were focused on moving out of nice familiar quarters and leaving behind a pretty Polish lady. If it was ever occurred to anyone that things were not going too well, he would do his best, like a good soldier, to put a brave face on things, ignoring the general course of events, concentrating on personal affairs close at hand, At first, they had been very pleasantly astonished just outside, where they had got to know the local Polish January, and they had got to know the local Polish January, and they had prepared for inspections that were then conducted by the Tsar or various members of the High Command. Then came the order to retreat to certainly and destroy all the stores that could be carried away. Was remembered by all the hussars for two reasons. Only it was the drunken cap, so called by every soldier who stayed there, and it was also the cause of many complaints against the troops for their applications of orders to remove all stores, since they took all stores to include horses, carriages, and carpets seized from the Polish January. Rostov, remembered as a village in the backwoods there, on this first day he had sacked his quartermaster and lost control of the men of his squadron, who drank themselves stupid 5 barrels of old beer brought along without his knowledge. From then they had fallen back further and further, as far as Dridza. In Dridza, the retreat had continued. Still, they were almost back at the Russian frontier. On the 13th of July, the Pavlograd Hussars saw serious action for the first time. On 12th of July, July 12th, the night before the action, there had been a thunderstorm with torrential rain. The summer of 1812 was a bad one of thunderstorms. The two Pavlograd squadrons were encamped in the middle of a rye field, which had been standing in full ear but was now thoroughly tramped by cattle and horses. That rain came down to the torrent, and Rostov was sitting one of his protectees, a young officer by the name of Aajw, in a little shelter that had been knocked up for them. A fellow officer with mutton chop whiskers, delayed by the rain on his way back from the headquarters, dropped in on Rostov. Heard about this amazing fate, and the officer had launched into a detailed account of the battle and he had picked up at headquarters. Rostov went on smoking his pipe wrinkling his neck where the rainwater and was trickling down. Listening was half an ear and glancing from time to time at the young Aladdin who was squeezed up close by. Aladdin, a boy 16th to the regiment, looked up to Nikolai just as Nikolai looked up to Denisov 7 years before. Aladdin tried to imitate everything Rostov did and ignored him like a girl. The officers with a much thin chopped whiskers was going on about the dam and purposely described by him as the Russian Thermopylae and was the heroic deed performed there by General Rapsky, a deed worthy of the ancient. Told General Rapsky how Rapsky had gone out on the dam with his 2 sons under a terrible hall of fire and charged forward with them at his side. Rostov listened, but far from incurring in his transports with a sympathetic word or two, he assumed the air of a man who was embarrassed by what he was hearing, but had no intention of raising it on any objections. With Austerlitz and a campaign of 1807 behind him, Rostov knew from the personal experience that everybody lies as he had done when it comes to describing deeds of war. Secondly, he was too experienced not to be aware that everything happens on the battlefield. And it's a way that totally transcends our imaginations, like power of descriptions. For these reasons, he didn't like was his way of bending right down and thrusting his mustaches straight in the face of the person he was talking to. It was a tight squeeze in the little shelter, and he was squeezing them more. Rostov watched him and said not a word. In the first place, them were charging must have been so crowded and chaotic that dam was, if he really had gone forward with his sons, it couldn't have had any effect on anybody beyond the 10 or 12 men closest to him. Or who was with him. But even the one The ones who did see him couldn't have got much a boost from it. Why should they bother about sake warm, feathery feelings? Anyway, the fate of Mother Russia didn't depend on a dam being taken or not taken, as was the case at Thermopylae. So they say being taken or not taken. So they say why make a sacrifice like that? What's the point in getting your own children mixed up in a battle? I won't expose my brother Petya to any danger or even a lagging, and he's nothing to me. Though he's a nice boy, I do what I could keep them somewhere safe and sheltered. These were the thoughts that ran through Rostov's mind and sheltered. These were the thoughts that ran through Rostov's mind as he listened. But he didn't say a word about them being too experienced, even for that. He knew that stories like this redounded to the glory of our effort. So it was best to pretend not to doubt them. This is what he did. Well, it's it. I've had enough, said Alagin, noticing that Rostov didn't talk. Stocking shirt, the lot. I'm soaked. I'm off to find somewhere else to shelter. I think that the rain may have eased off. Alagin walked out and rode away. 5 minutes later, Alagin was back, splashing through the mud as he ran towards the shelter. Rostov, let's get going. Guess what I found in a couple of 100 yards away, and our boys are there as a chance to dry out, and Maria there too. Maria was a regimental doctor's wife, was a pretty young German girl who he married in Poland, being short of money or relevant to part of his young wife. In the early days of their marriage, the doctor took her with him everywhere. She was a part of the regiment, and his jealousy made him the butt of many jokes among the Hussar officers. Rostov flung a cape over his shoulders, yelled across to Larushka to follow on with their things, and set off with Alagin slipping in the mud and splashing straight through the pools in the drizzling rain with intermittent flashes of lightning in the distance streaming through the immense darkness. Rostov, oh, where are you? Over there, look at the lightning, they called to one another. Leave him alone, said Maria with a shy, happy smile. He won't have any trouble sleeping. He's been up all night. Oh no. He answered the officer. We've got to look after the doctor. Anything could happen, and I want him to be nice to me when he cuts my leg off or my arm. There were only 3 glasses of the water was so dirty, so you couldn't tell whether the tea was a strong or weak. And samovar only held enough water for 6 glasses, but all this added to the pleasure of enough water for 6 glasses, but all this was added to the pleasure of Maria's chubby little hands with their short, not too clean nails. All the officers seemed to have Maria for one evening. Even the officers who had been playing cards behind the screen soon sugar but 1 spoon, so no one could ever have a propster. It was decided that Maria would stir everybody's glass. In turn, Rostov received a glass, topped it with rum, and asked Maria to do the stirring. But you don't take sugar, do you? She said. The smile never left her face, seeming to the suggest that everything she said
Okay, you're done. Upload the video, Atticus.
Okay.
Great job. I heard you reading.
Okay.
Good job. And then let's play basketball.
Okay.
It's dangerous. Slide your chair in.